Maybe I can get,
I'll pull a report for you before you go.
thank you so much. And maybe
Yep.
I can get signed up to testify for that one.
Okay, I'll touch base with you later.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock. This is our Deschutes County Legislative call Friday morning, the 28th of March. Commissioner Adair, you were just, coordinate for next Tuesday. So thank you very much. As I say, any other updates? And welcome back, Commissioner Chang. I know spring break week you were traveling a little bit. Anything else, Commissioner Adair?
I think not. I know the Wolf bill did get out of the Senate. It's gone over to the House, says SB 777. So that's good news.
And Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, I'd like us, when there is a more final version or a final draft of SB 83, I'd like us to take another close look at it. There's a lot of things in there besides this discussion about rural ADUs, the landscape resiliency program that pumped $6 million into private land treatments in Deschutes County a few years ago. The Oregon Conservation Corps that has helped us assist, I think, something like 40 or 50 seniors on a fixed income with fuels reduction work around their homes, mostly in South County, and a number of other important fire resiliency programs or measures that we should be taking a look at, and I believe we should be weighing in on.
Senate Bill 83. Thank you. So quick update. I am driving to Salem this afternoon, or right after this meeting, to be at a hearing, testimony in front of committee on technology and information management and technology. So this is for the SIEC biannual. So every other year, and it's going to be like a couple hours. But it's really education and communication back and forth. So State Interoperability Executive Council. So I'll be in the Capitol today. If there's anything Doug can guide me to. I know they're aiming towards the Ways and Means meetings, but maybe there's something going on there today. So with that, Doug,
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Good morning. Doug Riggs on behalf of the county. Not much going on in the Capitol today. The only meeting today is your meeting.
Oh, there you go. Everybody can watch.
Yes, exactly. So it'll be 1,000% turnout. The reason for that is that the Ways and Means Committee is on the road today in Astoria. So they're in Astoria this week. They're in Warm Springs next week. So that's a good opportunity. And Commissioner, I suggested that the Core 3 people at the very least should plan to attend that hearing in force to illustrate support for the Core 3 program. It might be other areas as well that would be of interest for the county. So let me give you hopefully a quick, although there's a lot going on, update on what's going on in Salem. We are approaching the final deadline for bills to get out of committee. That deadline is April 10th. So that's a week from Thursday. So there's a mad rush on in the Capitol, not just because bills have to be heard and voted on, but because amendments need to be finalized and issued. And as Commissioner Chang mentioned, Senate Bill 83 is one of those bills that is kind of waiting on final amendments. We're on the -5 so far. I hear there's going to be a -6, but I've seen -19s and -20s on bills. And Bill, as a result of the backup in Legislative Council, amendments are coming out with small mistakes. And let me just give you one example. We have a bill, Senate Bill 75, which is the technical fix to the ADU bill that we had last session. As you recall, we've discussed that. Because the wildfire maps are being repealed, our bill should not refer to wildfire maps that may no longer exist after this session. And so we are drafting an amendment to streamline that bill, but it came back and there was an or in the wrong place and an and that needed to be inserted in a different section of the bill. And so we're waiting for that amendment to the amendment to come back, and we hope that that's going to come back in time next week. I will also point out that because that bill referred to wildfire maps, it somehow got on someone's listserv as a bill creating wildfire maps, and that is why there's close to 100 pieces of testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 75. No one had actually signed up to testify in person. I think that was some confusion about the purpose of the bill, but just in case you look at the testimony on Senate Bill 75, you'll see, many submissions opposing the bill, but for the wrong reasons. There's also, just so you know, there was a -1 amendment submitted to the bill, which would have allowed manufactured housing to be sited in wildfire mapped zones. But that was not something that we had asked for. That was something that the Oregon Manufactured Housing Alliance had asked Senator Nash to introduce, which he did. But since the bill's being modified and removing the reference to the wildfire maps, then that amendment is also unnecessary. And I talked to the sponsor. So that is a very long explanation just to illustrate where everything is in the process right now. Just about every bill is kind of in that state of confusion as we approach the deadlines. A couple other issues. The transient lodging tax, Bill 3556, has been up for a hearing. It was up for a second hearing and a work session that has now been delayed and postponed. And there is tremendous pressure on legislators to vote no on even moving the bill to the Revenue Committee. That pressure is coming from the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, which is characterizing the bill as a potential tax increase. So there is lots of concern and conflict with regards to 3556. A couple other bills that Jen wanted me to talk to. Jen, do you want me to talk about 3572 now or wait until later?
We'll go in order on the report for that one.
Okay.
And I just sent you a text on one more.
Okay, great. I'll take a look at that. So I think that's all. I mean, the mood is tense but positive in the building. People are rolling up their sleeves. There's a lot of work going on over the weekends and a lot of work going on early in the morning and in the evenings. I'm getting lots of calls after hours to work things out, get things fixed. AOC is keeping a very close eye on the appropriations bills. We'll talk about one of those bills today, the criminal justice appropriations, House Bill 5005. And then after, just so you know, after we get through the House passage of all the bills in the committee, there's going to be a period of time, a week or two, where all those bills have to get through the floor action in the House and the same thing in the Senate. And so it'll be a period of relative calm from a hearings perspective or a work session perspective, but it will be very busy for members on the floor. And then we'll just switch sides. And for instance, Senate Bill 75 will go to the House and we'll have to work with the House folks. So busy times, lots going on. So far, so good. I'll stop there and then we can go through the list of bills.
So just for clarity, Doug, so when is the kind of the last hearings before that it needs to end? So the April 9th, did you say, or something like that?
Yeah, some committees, the last hearing date is the 9th, and some committees, the last day they'll meet before the deadline is the 10th. So it depends on the day of the week that corresponds with their last hearing of the week.
And then the floor for the House and the Senate for first, second, third reading discussion, passing them to get them to go to the other if they go.
Correct. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. So Jen, yeah, keep us going here today. You've got a big plan. Thank you.
Okay, we'll roll right along. So the first one up is on page 1, and we may punt this. I just texted Doug to see if he had further information on this. Eric Kropp just flagged this yesterday morning, and I didn't realize he was out today, so I wasn't able to get a briefing from him on further information. It looks like it may be a placeholder bill right now. I'm just stalling a little bit to give Doug a little time. We can skip over it for now until we're able to have a briefing from staff on that, but it was listed as a 2-watch.
I'll
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
chime in and say that the Regional Housing Council has been tracking HB 3031 and the opportunities it presents to expand infrastructure that's needed to expand housing. And there's a bunch of people from the Regional Housing Council who have signed on to that in support of that bill already. And Doug can talk more about the mechanics and details.
Yeah, this is a bill that has been heavily massaged. I think there was a -4 or 5 amendment. and it was sent to Ways and Means Committee. This is meant to be an opportunity for the Ways and Means Committee to allocate funding for housing infrastructure. It sets up an Oregon Housing Infrastructure Fund. It has some definitions and some requirements for cities over 10,000 people that annex land from outside the UGB as far as the number of units per acre that have to be incorporated. Cities under 25,000, I think, can meet a different threshold. But this is one of those bills that will hopefully get through the process, and hopefully in a way that will ensure that the agencies move swiftly with the allocation of infrastructure. That's been the problem, I think, for most cities, is the length of time that agencies take to allocate funding or approve plans. But this will be one of those kind of end of session Ways and Means. How much money is left after the revenue forecast comes out in late May? How much do they think they can allocate towards housing?
So with that, sounding like that it's going to continue to progress through amendments. We currently have it as a 2-watch. Do the commissioners want to take a position and keep it at a 2-watch? Or do you want to bring it back for discussion next week? Or a different position, I guess.
I mean, I've always concluded that infrastructure is key to this whole thing, and housing is obviously the high priority. So either 2-watch or 2-support, knowing that it might evolve here a little bit, is where I would go with this. So Commissioner Chang, is it a
Yeah,
watch or support?
I've already signed on to a letter in support of 3031. So
Okay.
that's where I am at.
Commissioner Dare?
Support.
Yeah, so that's fine. So number 2, support, we'll take a position on it, and it'll evolve through the Ways and Means process.
Great. Next up is on page 3, HB 3572. So this bill was brought up last week by Reagan Knope, who is staff member for Representative Breeze Iverson. It talks about EMS and potential rural ambulance services. Doug is prepared to brief on this, as well as I did talk to Tom Kuhn yesterday. He is out. Up there, Heather Keisner can also provide further information on this as need be. So I'll turn it over to Doug and Heather.
Yeah, this is part of the EMS modernization package that has been shepherded by Representative Daisha Graber, who herself is a firefighter and EMS professional for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and also a state legislator. She put together an interim group and held hearings around the state. Has worked with the Central Oregon interest quite a bit, and one of the Jefferson County Fire and EMS people, Mayor Mike LePin, testified in support of the bill. It's actually a package of 2 bills. The other bill is House Bill 3380. They're both related, and COCO was briefed during the COCO Day a couple weeks ago on the bills as well. Good bills. They're trying to establish a more consistent funding opportunity for EMS services. I mean, as you probably heard, the EMS service in Fossil closed recently, leaving a gigantic hole in coverage. Other fire and EMS services districts in services are at great jeopardy. And so this is part of a package to try to bolster the system, establish a more consistent mechanism for supporting them, and ensuring that there's coverage for Oregonians statewide. And I believe these bills are going to be favorably received at Ways and Means. So I think Representative Breeze Iverson has done a great job with these bills, she and her colleagues, and I think these bills would be worth supporting.
Heather?
Yes, I would agree. So we did a little research because we haven't really been following this one on public health. We did reach out to our ASA EMS providers, haven't heard back. However, I think potentially it really has, for our surrounding counties, is going to be a huge benefit, which actually could benefit our providers, because I know that we provide a lot of cross-jurisdictional help. So I think public health would recommend supporting as well.
Well, and this has been a scenario in Southern Deschutes County. La Pine's ambulance service area is a huge area down, and then Northern Klamath, because they're all running to Bend for the emergency services at the emergency room, and long run, very expensive. Medicaid reimbursements, probably a third or a quarter of the total cost. So it's serious business for rural. I agree. So yeah, I'll absolutely support this. Any other thoughts, Commissioner Dare?
Of course, support it. Yes, let's hope that that actually is a bill that passes.
And Commissioner Chang?
Sure. Support.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Good. Well, yeah, we'll thank the representatives for putting this together and see if we can help shepherd it along a little bit.
So should we add that other bill? Is the 3380 part of our package too then?
Yeah, I'd recommend supporting both. They are a package and were developed in concert. Slight differences between the two, but certainly wouldn't hurt to add. If you look, most of the testimony in the record refers to both bills.
Great catch, Commissioner. So you
The
support
commissioners want to take a position on that second bill then too, or do you want me to just bring it up for discussion next week? We're kind of discussing it now, so just wanted to
Well,
clear.
in the concept of having them run together, testimony's been for both. I support that. Sounds like it was 3380.
Yes,
And you support that also, Commissioner Dare?
of course.
And
Since I
Commissioner Chang?
suggested it.
Yep.
Sure.
Just putting it on the record.
And
Okay.
just so you know, specifically 3380 provides a tax credit for EMS providers to incentivize the workforce elements of this situation.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Great. I'll mark those both as to support. Next up, we're on page 7. I apologize. We had later in the evening updates to the reports yesterday. So this email came through around 7 p.m. last night. I'll turn it over to Peter Gutowski, but we're going to talk about SB 1129. So he'll talk about the bill and whether or not the commissioners want to take a position on that bill, as well as a request for a letter of support, which came through in that email around 6:50 p.m. last night.
Thanks, Jen. And commissioners, this is the first time I took the liberty to draft a letter for your consideration if you find that this is a bill worth supporting. Senate Bill 1129 is a bill that Senator Broadman introduced to the Senate Committee on Housing and Development. It pertains to urban reserves. And specifically, it allows local governments, so really led by the cities, but of course the counties would be involved, to demonstrate the difficulty of designating lands that are typically first priority for urban reserves. And for as a reminder, urban reserves allow for expediting urban growth boundary amendments. You don't have to go through the statutory priorities. But what this bill does is it allows local governments, if they can demonstrate the difficulty of serving rural residential development on the edge of an urban growth boundary, they can discount it. And so think of Deschutes River Woods, think of Gopher Gulch, think of, there's an area near Pine Nursery, Pilot Butte Canal that's zoned suburban residential 2.5. It is not cost effective to extend urban services to these locations if the goal is to identify large tracts of land with willing property owners to address our housing needs. And so I found this bill to be incredibly impactful, which is why I recommend the board discuss it. And I wrote down it to be a priority 2. I could have put priority 1, and why I was presumptuous to draft a letter for your consideration.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, Peter, I think I'm supportive of this in concept. I don't fully understand the mechanics of how it all works. So this allows us to sort of leapfrog rural residential lands in UAR designation, or this allows us to leapfrog rural residential lands that are hard to serve with infrastructure during urban growth boundary expansions.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So this bill would be applied when a local government wants to establish an urban reserve area. So Ben wants to establish an urban reserve area at some point. They could, by demonstrating the difficulty of serving Deschutes River Woods, could ignore that area and then look to other exception areas and potentially lands that are of low productivity for agriculture. So it's an urban reserve exercise, and if it was enacted and executed, it would then designate, I believe, plausible land that's not fragmented, not with unwilling property owners or encumbered with homeowners associations that want to resist urban development. It gives the cities the ability to identify land that I think is that they'll have to demonstrate that is servable for future urbanization as part of an urban growth boundary amendment, process and identification.
Doug.
Yeah, this is not a bill that I've tracked very closely. It, I think, has been generated from the city of Bend. Eric Kanzler and the city of Bend testified in support of it. There is quite a bit of testimony in the record opposing the bill as written, but seemingly indicating that groups might be willing to support it with amendments. And there are no amendments that I have seen so far. So I just point that out. I don't know an awful lot about the bill, to be entirely honest.
Yeah, one follow-up very quickly in the interest of time. That Central Oregon Land Watch, Thousand Friends of Oregon's testified opposing the bill as currently crafted. They are providing arguments that I find are really misguided, almost making the argument that, where we have legacy in Deschutes County, we have legacy rural residential developments that were established before Senate Bill 100. They're vibrant, they're less than 10 acres, they've got dwellings, accessory structures, of course, wells and septic systems. And the arguments that are being put forward by the advocacy organizations, it's almost as if cities, you're compelled to bring these lands in to honor the integrity of the land use system, when in reality, if it can be demonstrated, and I don't think it'll be too difficult, that when you have multiple property owners that have been developed, and I say it respectfully, it's a fragmented rural landscape, it's very difficult to extend urban services if the goal is to try to expedite housing production. You're just going to do that, right? It's going to be easier to do that when you have large undeveloped properties. So while the bill may get amended, I think even as it's written, it's worthy of your consideration. And again, I didn't do this lightly. I went ahead and drafted a letter for your consideration. There is a work session on Monday afternoon, and that's really what compelled me to prepare this letter for you, where this committee will discuss this in more detail. So thank you for your time on this.
Doug, is our Land Watch and 1,000 Friends of Oregon's the organizations you were mentioning that have weighed in opposition to this bill, or are there others?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Peter said, which is there seems to be groupthink. They've all picked up this theme and are repeating it in their testimony. That includes the Jefferson County Farm Bureau, as I recall, the Thousand Friends of Oregon and Central Oregon Land Watch, and some individuals. So they've all mentioned an amendment. I've been reaching out to Eric Kanzler from the city of Bend to see what their plans are, and I will be happy to bring an amendment back. I think in the meantime, I think where Peter is going makes sense to me, but I'll leave it to the commissioners to make a decision, obviously.
Yeah, from what I know here, I want to be engaged. This matters. Maybe it even answers the question why Bend doesn't have an urban reserve why Bend doesn't have one like Redmond does, because of the development at the edge of town and the priorities of the urban reserve process, notifying, informing us that it's the urban reserve process, not urban growth boundary, but just, where would potential future development happen, setting priorities for when their next UGB happens. So as I say, I conclude that I'd like to be engaged in this. As I say, maybe a future amendments will support more or not like more. So Yeah, if, as I say, I'm reading the letter here, but the concept that I would support is, yes, this matters and we want to be engaged. Support or opposition will evolve as we discuss it.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about this is that I believe it would allow property owners right on the edge of our cities who have been scrambling to rezone their land rural residential because they think it gives them preferential treatment for inclusion in future urban growth boundaries. It sort of takes the pressure off to try to do that rezone for that purpose. So then we'll start to see, I think we might start to see, basically it'll be more clear what people's intentions are when they're pursuing rezone applications if under a system like this.
Commissioner Dare, any thoughts?
I would like to know a little bit more, but to me, it sounds like a good idea. So I'm more likely to support it.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like, yeah, we all want to be engaged in this. It's a very interesting topic. So then, Peter, can you help us with the letter real quick? I have it here, but I haven't really digested it for content.
Yeah.
What's it saying? Yeah, what's the
Well, I mean, I'm leveraging Deschutes County's expertise in urban reserves. In 2005, we established the Board of County Commissioners established one of the first urban reserves. It was the largest at its
Redmond, okay.
time, over 5,000 acres. So coming out of the gate, stating our support for it, putting context that we're familiar with urban reserves. The urban reserve led to a expedited UGB amendment by Redmond, both won statewide planning awards. And then really the bulk of the letter just describes the practicality of this legislation. In Deschutes County, as I mentioned, we have vibrant rural residential development that's on the edge of our urban growth boundaries, and allowing the reader to understand with more context why, if it can be demonstrated, these areas are not suitable for identification in urban reserve areas. And if local governments can do that, then it allows for the identification of lands that aren't encumbered or inhibited by those built environments, which can then allow local governments to identify land, bring it in as part of an urban growth boundary amendment, and presumably get to, developing critical housing, production, as well as other urban land needs in a way that will be far more efficient and generate greater development yield than would otherwise occur without this legislation. So that's how I structured the letter and thought it was the most effective.
Well, yeah, so it doesn't say anything about specific enthusiastic support for this version, but it does mention it to the topic, the definition, what the topic is, and then including county staff, including Community Development Director Peter Gutowski, are available to further articulate our requests. So being engaged, which is exactly the conclusion I came to. So how about we tentatively approve this letter, and then once you get to read it, you can either sign it or not, but I support this, stating that we want to be engaged.
And I would say for clarification, the first sentence of the second paragraph specifically says it requests support for 1129. So
Okay.
if just for clarification there with how you were recapping that, Commissioner DeBonne, so that.
And maybe just add and possible amendments. How about, something like that, just to know that it's evolving.
Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you, Peter. I really like what you did. I think bringing up Redmond as an example of what Deschutes County has been dealing with and our growth. So I'm more than happy to sign that letter.
Okay, Commissioner Charing.
Yep, support.
Great, okay. Thank you. And Peter, you did a great job getting us there.
Okay,
Or
so,
assuming where we might go, I guess, is what it was.
so we landed at a 2 support for the bill. And it looks like we're gonna circulate the letter for signature, potentially just adding and amendments to that second, or to that sentence,
Possible
or are we
amendments
just,
or something like that, just so it opens up the
okay,
domain.
great. Next up, there's nothing to look at on page 8, but we're going to page 8, which is community justice. DV and Doug can talk about this, but there's specifically, so this was in the context of the email that I sent, last night. There's not a letter of attachment, but it's Senate Bill 1159, which was originally sponsored by Senator Broadman. And a quick recap, I believe, is after DV had a conversation with him, would like to request sponsorship to be removed and an email sent, but I will send it over to DV to make sure I recaptured that, or I captured that okay.
Yes, thank you, Jen. And apologies for the late notice on that. That conversation did happen yesterday. So the Senate Bill 1159, I think is titled Children's Advocate, and it proposes to kind of overhaul and add another layer of investigation when allegations of abuse and neglect are made against children in different kinds of institutional settings. And it would also, it appears, include youth who are in juvenile detention or juvenile justice settings. The current practice, which we support, which works very well and efficiently and quickly, is that law enforcement investigates abuse allegations in juvenile justice settings. And the Juvenile Department Directors Association, as well as AOC, wants to keep it that way and don't find this mechanism to be effective and perhaps even harmful when you think about the additional layers of bureaucracy and confusion around investigations of such serious nature. So yeah, Senator Broadman appeared during that conversation to say he wants to remove his name as sponsor. He asked that we send an email just kind of clarifying our position on that. And I am happy to do so, speaking specifically not on behalf of the Directors Association or AOC, of course, just as a county juvenile division. So it's just an email he needs. I forwarded on to Jen because I'm sure he will forward that on potentially to the primary sponsor of the bill, and just wanted to make sure you knew that that was where we were headed or interested in. And Doug had some comments too.
Well, could you repeat that? So the context is allegation of abuse, following up for investigation. And what was the scenario in there? The fact that the bill would do what?
The bill, it wants to create a brand new entity on top of or somehow coexisting with all the other different entities that exist that are currently, in my experience, actually, not my opinion, my experience, very confusing and time consuming.
Yep. So an
As
entity
opposed to
which would
just
be-
sticking with law enforcement, clearly.
An entity would be like a public safety detective function or a legal review function, or what? Just generally, what are we talking? I guess I'm just trying to understand.
So all child caring agencies already are subject to thousands and thousands of pages of regulatory restrictions. In fact, the over-regulation and the criminalization of the workforce, which is what those bills have done, have led to a shocking decline in the number of child caring providers. So in 2014, the state had 51 many small and medium-sized nonprofits that would take kids with mental and behavioral health issues. Today, there are 5, plus the 2 that are essentially the state hospitals.
Okay.
So 7 total, but there are 5 facilities that will take those kids. And that's that's why we have so many kids in ERs, so many kids in hotel rooms with DHS staff people. We have pressure from DHS to move kids out of state because there are no facilities here. And one of the main reasons that has occurred is because of this over-regulation of the system, where even small incidents must be characterized either as abuse or neglect. So all the regulations are already, this high in the system. There's also the investigative organization for these programs is called OTIS, the Office of Training, Inspections, and Safety. OTIS has several dozen full-time investigators. There's a child abuse hotline that takes reports of child abuse. All of these protections and safeguards and legal systems already exist. In fact, probably too much, because no one wants to come in and work in this sector, which is why we have so few good places to put kids. What this bill does, it creates, it takes what we all know we ought to have, which is a child advocate, and gives that child advocate regulatory and investigative powers on top of the existing regulatory and investigative powers. And so it creates even more regulation on top of a system that is already collapsing. So my point on this, and in some of my other children's clients, I've followed this closely. If you want to go from 5 residential programs to 0 residential programs, pass this bill.
Yes.
And then kids will be less safe. More kids will be in ERs. More kids will be on the street. More kids will have to be in hotels, and there'll be more pressure to put kids out of state. So I think DV and the other organizations that have submitted testimony are exactly right. This is the wrong approach. It doubles down on an approach that's already failed, and an approach that's harming kids. Kids are being harmed as a result of the current system. And this says, oh, let's take that current system which is harming kids and make it even worse. So
Thank you.
anyway, sorry for that long-winded explanation.
Oh, no, that helps put it in perspective. So DV, you said this would be from Deschutes County proper. What's the AOC or other organizational positions, or is this kind of taking a lead role of?
Yeah, no, thank you, Commissioner. The AOC has already signed on and provided testimony opposing, as well as the Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Association. He just wanted something, I think some bullet points really is what he asked for,
Good.
that he can use when he's forwarding on his withdrawal, at least as we left it yesterday.
Good. Okay. Commissioner Chang.
I just wanted to ask, so, Representative Kropp has, he has worked a lot in sort of the juvenile justice space. I'm wondering if, he's weighing in at all on this bill and this issue, and, if we're going to take a position opposing this bill, whether we could, recruit him into helping with that opposition as well. And I'm asking DV, do you know whether?
I do not know. We were in a meeting with Senator Broadman for kind of another reason, but he had just kind of recently signed on as co-sponsor. So that's why we were addressing it. I don't know his position. I'm sorry.
Well, I support, making sure Representative Kropp understands that. So CC and, copy in the office, making sure he's up to speed on this.
And
Go ahead.
I have a question regarding the Oregon Youth Authority, what's come out. What has the legislature done to address that situation? I see that they were having hearings. What bill is that under, Doug or DV?
Yeah, Commissioner, what you're referring to is the allegations that there were over 3,000 investigations that were not pursued by the investigator, many of them at McLaren, and that the now former director Joe O'Leary was briefed on these investigations and did no follow-up. So Joe has now been terminated by the governor, and they have a temporary director. There are, I understand, a lot more problems at OYA than we previously understood, and the Public Safety Subcommittee has held a hearing and is having discussions with the governor's staff and others on how to fix that. OYA and OYA programs have been severely underfunded. The rates that OYA paid its providers, and we have a provider in Deschutes County, JBarJ, which has worked with OYA over the years. The rates for salaries were, until 2017, were $10 and $12.40 an hour for bachelor's and master's level clinicians, and that's not sufficient to be able to hire enough people to do the job. And that's because OYA wasn't asking for rates that kept up with inflation. So lots of problems at OYA, Commissioner, and it's a good thing to track and follow.
Is there any legislation that has been implemented to date?
I haven't seen any bills directly related to that. I think this is kind of a new enough issue that we need the administration needs to get to the bottom of it. And then my guess is there will be some interim work groups and try to figure out how do you respond to that. One of the issues that I've heard is that OYA made a decision to close one of their 2 residential facilities, which was Hillcrest, and that left, an awful lot of capacity that could have been used for youth in a less stringent setting than McLaren, unused. So I think the legislature needs to do a deep dive into the problems at OYA.
Thanks.
So, Senate Bill 1159, the request is that bullet points and information asking Senator Broadman or supporting Senator Broadman to remove signing on to this bill from, so Dee, is this from you or from the board, or what are we envisioning?
I think it's fine to just come from me as a juvenile
Yeah.
department director.
So it's just support from the board at today's meeting, understanding the big picture. And I've
Correct.
learned a lot. So is there support, Commissioner Chang's, making sure Representative Cropp's involved also?
Yeah, I think I like the idea of CCing him. That's good.
Commissioner Dare.
Of course. Thank you, Dee, for pointing it out.
Right, okay. Good clarity there. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we have page 10, District Attorney with DA Gunnels. There are 3 bills here for his discussion, so I'll just turn it directly over to him.
Thank you. So House Bill 3935 is a bill that increases the penalty for swatting incidents. Swatting, if you're not familiar, are incidents where somebody calls 911 or they send a message to emergency services in an area, claim that there's an active shooter or a crime of violence occurring in a particular place, and when that's not true, and police respond with appropriate force, and people have been hurt in these incidents. We've had a very high profile incident here where Bend High School was the subject of a swatting incident a couple of years ago, and all law enforcement in Central Oregon responded to that. It's a very dangerous situation that's created when that happens, and also an incredible waste of resources, even if nobody gets hurt. So this bill would turn that crime into a felony as opposed to the misdemeanor that it currently is. That's important for a number of reasons. One, for the penalty that would be imposed. For the other reason that many of these incidents are perpetrated by people from out of the area in other states. We had that one incident I'm aware of, the perpetrator was in Pennsylvania. And if we charge somebody with a misdemeanor, we will not, the state of Oregon will not extradite them on a misdemeanor typically. So this would be a big plus when that crime is committed. 3935. My understanding is that this probably isn't going to go anywhere this session, but it's good to get it on the radar. So I personally would support it. The Oregon District Attorneys Association is supporting it.
Commissioner Dare.
I've already written my letter of
Oh.
support.
Already on it, okay.
Well, yes, because I talked to our DA on Tuesday, and that's what he said to worry about. So, and it might be having it might be supported by both sides. I'm looking at the list now.
Commissioner Chang.
So Steve, if if the crime level is dialed up to felony, then that allows and facilitates extradition, which we can't do right now with a misdemeanor. Is that?
That is correct. That is correct. The governor's office really is in charge of extradition, and it's very unusual for them to approve an extradition on a misdemeanor, and because of the cost and the bang for the buck, so to speak.
Yeah.
So to get an unrestricted national warrant, it has to be a felony.
Okay, I'm supportive.
Yeah, and I am too. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a terrible scenario can be set up just with phone calls and somebody calling something in like that. So we'll take a position of to support.
Thank you. The next one up is House Bill 5005, which is just a general funding bill for the Criminal Justice Commission, and the Oregon District Attorneys Association is taking a watch position on that. CJC is important to our office because they fund some of our programs. And they're a good organization that does a lot of good work in the criminal justice area. But I said, I think I said no position on it because my association isn't taking a position.
Can I ask, I was just gonna ask Holly whether, I believe we have a lot of behavioral health programs that flow through the CJC. So from that perspective, should we be taking it, I mean, from a behavioral health perspective, should we be taking a position on this bill?
I would be in favor of a support on this bill. I mean, I think the CJC programs, we have several that flow through both through probation and parole and behavioral health. They're a great organization, and the Impacts grant is flowing through CJC, which obviously funds a huge portion of the stabilization center. So that's what I'll be testifying on, because it was unfortunately the governor's office, the CJC has to have their, whatever they submit has to be what was recommended in the governor's budget, and the governor did not include impacts funding in that. So I'm testifying that actually be included in addition to what they've already proposed.
And if I may, just very quickly, community justice relies on Criminal Justice Commission JRP dollars quite literally for several FTE and for almost our entire downward departure and transitional leave program, which is really important to fund so that we can keep folks in the communities safely. So we are in support of that bill, as well as my associations of community corrections directors.
Yeah. I mean, given the importance of CJC funding to so many really high profile, really important county programs, I would suggest we take a position one support for this bill.
So yeah, going to Ways and Means, this is going to be the big list of asks and wants. Ways and Means is going to have to figure out how much money they have and draw a line somewhere. So this is, I think of going to that Ways and Means road show and kind of having our clarity on what we think is really important for investment by the state. So yeah, there's a proposal to kind of bring this to a priority one level. Any discussion, Commissioner Dare?
Well, I'm happy to leave it at a 2 to support. Truly, we need to support it. I'm glad that Holly's testifying.
So I would say 2 support also, but as I say, prepare for this Ways and Means testimony, and I'll make sure I'm there because there'll be a couple discussions. Core 3 was mentioned. There's going to be a letter for Mosaic Medical asking for bond dollars and items like this. So we could put a paragraph or 2 together that kind of explain how we see the priorities. So yeah, let's go with 2 support, understanding the enthusiasm on this, and the fact that we're going to help Ways and Means make the best choice they can with the resources they have. Commissioner Chang.
I just want to reemphasize that there are a lot of great things for us to support, but the CJC supports the county organization and critical services within Deschutes County, within capital C county government. So if
Put a letter together.
If we only want to put a priority 2 on it at the moment, that's fine, but I would encourage us to watch this closely. And if we're concerned about the bill and the funding package that ultimately shakes out, that we be ready to dial that up.
As I said, and I do want to take some focus on, the priorities that we are putting out there, because we're going to ask for money a few different ways. So let's maybe either schedule that for a Monday, Wednesday kind of either agenda item or just a discussion somehow, or start writing letters very specifically about why this matters so much to us down a few different paths. As I say, that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I part of the reason I was suggesting priority 1 was so that we would write a letter. So maybe we could just go ahead and ask staff to draft a letter for us in support of this bill.
Yeah, let's do that. That's great. So we'll take a 2 support letter, understanding that we're advocating for some serious stuff for our Ways and Means decisions at the state level.
Great. And then one more under the DAs here.
Okay. So the last one here is Senate Bill 65. which would create a state civil rights, a basis for a state civil rights lawsuit, a Section 1983 lawsuit that would typically be in federal court. And I, from a DA's point of view, I take no position on it. It's kind of peripheral to what we do, but I would think it would be in the county's interest to take a position on it, because it will either it could potentially hurt the bottom line for counties. And in my review of it, I said county legal would probably want to weigh in on this because they're more directly involved in it.
Yeah. is there
I
any-
believe Dave's on and prepared to talk about this a
Oh,
little
great,
bit.
thank you.
Yeah, the association statewide's not supportive of it for whatever that's worth. It seems to be redundant with what's already available in the federal courts. And so we're not supportive of it. But I like I say, I think there's going to be some larger statewide organizations that are going to speak to it. So
So how about we leave it at 2 with a no position so we can hear about it if something interesting happens?
certainly
Okay.
fine by legal.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised if you look at the testimony on this bill, which I did earlier this morning. There's almost no testimony, and there are 4 pieces of testimony. 2 are neutral, and the other 2 I think are oppose or support. Let me see. Support. So there's 3 supports and 1 neutral, but no testimony by some of the major statewide organizations, would surprise me.
And is this, has it had a hearing? So is it moving forward a little bit possibly?
There's a dash 4 amendment, and there is a work session that has been scheduled for next week.
Okay, yeah, so it has been scheduled. That's why it's popping up right now. Okay.
Yeah. And it's in the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know the domain. I need to be more informed on this.
I think there's a level of sensitivity, Commissioner. I think some of the opposition from some of the civil bar is that federal civil rights cases are relatively complicated, and we're not sure that our state court bar, at certain instances that might not be in their wheelhouse. And so I think people are kind of tiptoeing around that issue in addition to just being a duplicative forum for those types of claims.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
I think what
Yeah,
you
so-
said to do, taking no position but watching it.
Okay. Here we go. So we'll leave it there for now. A little bit of introduction. And as I say, if there's more to learn on that, I'm available to have a discussion.
Great. Next up, we have a letter of support request from Mosaic Health. This is for their Connors campus state bond funding request. There's a draft letter that was in the email. It was in both emails for your reference, with potentially having the commissioner's signature on there. So I'll turn that over for the commissioner discussion.
So yeah, letter's been provided. I made sure to get this to Jen and it came up for today. So it talks about, what a federally qualified health center is. The Mosaic has 16 health centers across the area. $4 million state bond request in support of the Connors campus is what this is. And it's requesting a letter of support. Commissioner Dare, did you already do this?
Yes, I did.
I thought you might have, yeah.
Yes.
So-
But the sad news is the Mosaic and our building and Kingwood is currently open 1 day a week. So I talked to them about that. I really, 1 day a week. The sign said 2, and it's actually down to 1 day a week.
Well, I think are you referring to the drop services at that point?
No,
we had
no,
talked
this
about?
is Mosaic Medical
Oh,
in the
medical, okay.
Kingwood building, and they have a little clinic there. And remember, anyway, they wanted to add another clinic at the Oasis location, and I'm like, no, we just paid for one, and that's actually only open 1 day a week now.
Yeah, okay. So Commissioner Chang, do you want to sign a letter from the board?
Yeah, I'm supportive. I'm interested to hear what Janice has to say.
Yeah, please, Janice.
Yeah, I just want to note that I was also asked for a letter, and I would like, if you're supportive of signing the letter as the county commissioners, I would like to sign on to the letter that sort of represents the healthcare group. It's myself, St. Charles, Emily Salmon, and Kat Mastrangelo from Volunteers in Medicine. So I'm just noting that if you're in support of this letter, the letter I would sign is identical, but I would sign as the Health Services Director. And then in terms of the Mosaic Clinic in North County, they have not been able to get regular staff for that clinic. So staffing has been a real issue at many of their locations. And I think that's one of the things they're hoping to address with consolidating some of their locations at Connors, is it will bring more providers together. So we'll see. And on a final note on that, that was one location that Mosaic actually contributed dollars to. So they spent $250,000 to outfit that clinic. So we did get some resources and input from Mosaic for that particular location. Thanks.
Thank you. So I know that the Connors campus, in partnership with the efforts of Housing Works and the housing opportunities that are going to be there, it's kind of time. It's time for them to be able to try to put the capital project together and get it built, as I say, co-located with some efforts of Housing Works. So I'm supportive of this also.
I'm sorry, but I need to go in
Yep,
for
okay.
the meeting starting at 9.
Just
so-
real
Thank you very
quick,
much.
Commissioner Adair, did you want me to leave you on this letter as well, even though you signed an identical letter, or do you want to just have it from Commissioner DeBonne and Commissioner Chang?
That would look kind of funny, wouldn't it? I'll sign both.
We'll all sign it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Chang, you support of that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for this meeting?
Can I just point out, Commissioner Chang raised the issue of Senate Bill 83 early in the meeting. Senate Bill 83 will be the vehicle by which the wildfire maps will be repealed. It also, as Commissioner Chang pointed out, does an awful lot of things. It looks to me, I went through a careful side-by-side of the -4s and the -5s this morning. It looks like the -5s are the version of the amendment that we had to take a look at the present time. There are 5 extra pages in the -5, so it grows to 41 pages. But it has a whole series of kind of new sections starting on page 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, and 17 that were not in the -4s or in the base bill. So I believe that that'll be a more appropriate thing for staff to take a look at as the -5s to Senate Bill 83.
Great, thank you so much.
Yep.
So Ways and Means is at Warm Springs next Friday. So a nice Friday night, maybe come on up and we'll go to dinner afterwards or something. So, but I'd like to do a little bit of preparation, as I say, if Doug, you can help, and maybe Jen, about, what have we been asking? What are the priorities? Because Core 3 popped up, but we're, at a few different capital items and what's in perspective there. Also a question for Doug: does it make sense to advocate for the A&T funding bill at a Ways and Means Committee or not? Because that really kind of recalibrates the cost of doing assessment taxation, which helps the general fund of the counties tremendously. But would that be in the domain of Ways and Means, or there? Yeah.
No, that's going to be a revenue committee issue. Eventually, if there's a change in the amount of money coming in that Ways and Means can spend, there'd be an impact. But
yeah, so different topic. Yeah, I was just thinking through that a little bit.
Focus on, I pick the 5 or 6 top funding priorities for the county, or if it's 3 or 4, that's more digestible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's try to get something together next week.
And I will be there as well. I plan to attend that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I took some notes from that earlier conversation, and I got at least 3 funding priorities, but I'll reach out to the individual commissioners and put some bullet points together, and we could discuss it tomorrow, Friday morning's call.
Next Friday morning, so maybe Wednesday.
We could do Wednesday work. We could do Wednesday other items.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to flag one more bill that I think we should dig into and learn more about. It's Senate Bill 1154. And it's a bill to kind of update the Groundwater Quality Protection Act for the state. And their hope is to allow more proactive efforts on groundwater contamination issues before they hit critical thresholds. So this sounds a lot like South County to me. We are not at a place where there's thousands of people drinking contaminated well water yet, but that could happen in the next 10 to 15 years. And so this would allow more action, and support, in this period before we hit that critical threshold, rather than trying to fix it afterwards, which we see is not very effective over in the Umatilla Basin right now. I don't know a lot about the bill, so it's something that I think we should investigate, but I wanted to put it on the radar screen and ask, I guess, community development staff to dig into that.
I support that. And as I say, how can we set it up so there's a path forward, which isn't running into appeals, roadblocks, and full cost to one party. So partnership in the cost of this thing. So there's a big picture, but I support looking into that, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, there's stuff about like crafting plans, setting up committees, things like that. It may not be well suited to a place like ours where the problem is well understood and there have been significant prior efforts. But maybe if we're tracking it early enough, then we can address that. We can make sure that it offers opportunity to take proactive action in a place like our community where there has been a lot of work, but not a lot of progress yet.
So there's a public hearing on this on Thursday, April 3rd. So we could do one of two things, or a variety of things, I think. But immediately we could have it brought up in other items on the Wednesday BOCC meeting, and I'll talk to Peter to see if staff can come with further information, or we can talk about it on Friday. We can submit testimony within 48 hours of a hearing, so we could talk about it next Friday. And if there was any kind of action the county wanted to take, we would still be within that 48-hour deadline. So I'll put that back to the commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a way, well, and we can do just a simple email, update to, what we know, what the scope of this is. Yeah, I mean, if Peter, if you have somebody that can just kind of analyze it a little bit, understand what we're talking about, send an update to the commissioner so we can read about it. And then if we need to discuss it, we'll just bring it up under other items.
Yeah, I mean, a letter could even just, by describing our situation, and saying we need help to do more here, and not be real specific yet about the bill. I mean, I think it can still speak to the importance of doing legislation around this, even if we haven't arrived at a specific position yet.
But I like that idea too. Maybe it could, because as a 10-year period goes by, people come and go and people retire and they're like, oh yeah, I think I heard something about that from my grandpa, but I don't remember what it is anymore. So yeah, it's good to advertise our scenario that we know well. I agree with you on that. Good. Well, let's do that.
I think I got the takeaway there. We'll work with Peter to put an email together with more information to the commissioners and move forward from
As I say, a
that.
possible letter, we can bring that up in the near future.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, meeting will be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.